I used to believe that dedication would eventually be rewarded. Until the day I opened that old document folder. That afternoon, I stopped by my parents' house in Salem, Oregon, like I did every weekend. My mother, Denise, wasn't tech-savvy, so I often helped her check bills, organize tax papers, and scan important documents. That two-story red brick house, the one I had spent nearly a decade financially supporting and helping renovate tile by tile, felt like a second home to me. "Can you take a look at this for me?" she said, handing me a messy stack of papers before heading back to her orchids in the backyard. I sat down at the dining table, sifting through the pile, until my eyes landed on a thick, cream-colored envelope labeled in bold, "Estate Plan and Will." I hesitated. Not because I was curious, at least that's what I told myself, but because I wanted to make sure everything was in order. I'd always been the one to worry about things like this, the one who kept the family from falling apart. But as I flipped to the asset distribution page, I felt a tight pressure in my chest. Everything, and I mean everything my parents owned. The house, over $450,000, 0 cents in savings, the new SUV, even Mom's wedding ring was clearly stated to go to Samantha, my younger sister. And me? Not a word. Not a single mention beyond the vague line, "We love both our daughters." I clenched the paper, my knuckles turning white. Every memory of working 2 jobs to help pay their mortgage, of driving through snowstorms to deliver Mom's medication, of fixing plumbing, replacing shingles. Each of them felt like they had just been slapped out of existence by that cold, printed sentence. I heard my mom re-enter the house, her footsteps light behind me. "Hannah, did you find the statement?" I stood up, will in hand, and turned around. My voice was calm, unavailingly calm. "Mom, is this real?" She froze, her eyes glancing at the paper in my hand. "Oh, Hannah, what does that mean?" I cut her off, my throat tight but each word sharp. "A lifetime of caring for you and Dad, and I'm written off like I never existed?" My dad, Richard, walked in from the living room just then, coffee mug in hand. He set it down with a sigh, like he was about to comment on the weather. "You don't need to react like this, Hannah. You're doing fine. Samantha, she's still figuring things out." I let out a laugh, humorless and dry. "Figuring things out? She's 30. She changes jobs every 3 months, lives off you two, and can't pay her own phone bill. I'm the one who paid your mortgage for the last 3 years, the one who fixed the roof last winter, the one who's kept this house from falling apart dollar by dollar." My mom stepped forward, placing a hand over mine as if that could calm me. "Don't overthink it. I just wanted your sister to feel secure." I pulled my hand away, nodded slightly, my gaze ice cold. "Secure? And what about me? The only one who's kept this place standing all these years?" They said nothing. I placed the will back on the table like returning a declaration of war. "Thanks for showing me where I really stand." I walked to the door without looking back. No one called out behind me. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel hurt. I just felt empty. A quiet, hollow kind of emptiness that chilled me to the bone. I never returned to that house after discovering the will. 2 weeks passed in silence, no calls, no messages, like I had never existed in their world. I told myself if they had even a shred of conscience, they'd reach out. But instead of an apology or explanation, what I got was a message from Dad. "Hannah, this month's mortgage is due. Can you transfer it soon? Deadline's Friday." I sat frozen, staring at the message in disbelief. Part of me almost laughed. No mention of what happened, no asking if I was okay. Just a demand like I was their default ATM. I typed back, every word like ice. "I think Samantha can handle it. That house is hers now, right?" Then I set my phone down and didn't wait for a reply. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up again. This time, it was Mom. "Hannah, don't do this. We need to talk." I didn't answer. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just a kind of ruthless clarity had taken the place of every fragile hope I once held. For years, I believed my sacrifices would be acknowledged. I was wrong. And I had no interest in playing savior anymore. 3 days later, the next message came. From Samantha. You're overreacting. Mom and Dad didn't mean it like that. You've always been independent, and I'm just not. You know that. I typed slowly, each word cutting through my sister's fake mask. Then prove you deserve what you've been given. Start by paying the mortgage. No response. Another week passed in silence, until one Monday morning, while I was sipping coffee in my kitchen, my phone buzzed with a transfer request. Exactly $2,900.00 from my mom. No message. Just a cold withdrawal request, as emotionless as the way they'd written me out of everything. I hit decline without a second's hesitation. Minutes later, the phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring to the fourth buzz, then declined the call. A message followed immediately. Hannah, I know you saw it. Why did you decline? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and replied, because it's no longer my responsibility. Ask Samantha. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had control. I wasn't the one scrambling to fix cracks I didn't create. I wasn't sacrificing my entire youth to patch up other people's failures. 3 days later, Samantha texted again. You're being so selfish. Didn't you always say family comes first? I reread that message over and over. Family? The family she was talking about was the same one that treated me like an outsider, like a walking wallet. I replied with one sentence. Family is about fairness and respect, not using someone until they're no longer useful. After that, there were no more messages. Silence settled over everything, but this time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like relief, a release from a burden I'd carried for far too long. But deep down, I knew. This silence was only the beginning, because they'd be back. When no one else would help. When the house was at risk of foreclosure. When Samantha, with all that inheritance, still wouldn't know how to pay a bill on time. And when that moment came, I'd be ready. Not to save them, but to show them that I was no longer the one who would sacrifice without so much as a thank you. The next message from Samantha came near midnight while I was halfway through a historical novel and sipping hot tea. The phone lit up, and I didn't even need to open it to guess the tone. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I scrolled and kept reading. Everyone's already stressed out. Why are you choosing now to be dramatic? It's just a few payments. You've always done it. A dry laugh slipped from my lips, without any humor at all. Just a few payments. Easy to say when you've never paid a utility bill in your life. I typed back. I'm not being dramatic, I'm being clear, and you better get used to it. Less than a minute later, she replied, You're seriously selfish. Don't be surprised if Mom and Dad don't forgive you. I set the phone down. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I wasn't haunted by what if they're upset, or obsessed with being the good daughter. I had crossed the line between being exploited and standing up for myself. The next day, I called the bank and requested my name be removed from the joint account used for the mortgage. I also contacted the utility companies and canceled all the auto payments I'd been secretly handling for years. I'd deleted the bill reminders on my phone, like a small ceremony marking the end of my role in their household. That night, I cleaned up my tiny apartment, played my favorite playlist, and bought myself a chocolate cake I'd always loved but never bought, because the money always had to go toward more important things. I started sleeping soundly. I woke up without the jolt of a payment notification. I went to work without feeling like I was dragging 3 other adults on my back. I even signed up for an online art class, something I dreamed about for years but always pushed aside because I didn't have time or really wasn't allowed to be selfish. And as my life started to breathe on its own again, the knocks from the past came louder. Early the following week, my mom, Denise, called. I didn't answer. A message came right after. Hannah, we need to talk. Your sister doesn't know how to pay the internet bill. Can you help? I didn't respond. 2 days later, another one. The landline got cut. She says she can't log in. I don't know what to do. I read the message, then opened the bookshelf and pulled out the old notebook, where I'd once written down every password, billing schedule, and customer service number. Every time my parents didn't know what to do, they called me. Every time Samantha forgot a payment, I handled it. This time, I closed the notebook and put it back. I wasn't their assistant. I wasn't the backbone of a system that erased me the second I stopped being useful. 3 days later, another message from Samantha landed in my inbox. Are you kidding me right now? The power's about to be shut off. Are you really going to let that happen to our family? I replied with just one sentence. No, I'm just letting everyone take responsibility for their own choices. Silence. I didn't hear anything for several more days. Until one morning, a call came from an unexpected number. Mrs. Lorraine, the neighbor who'd lived next to my parents for the last 20 years. Your mom asked if I knew anyone selling houses. I think they're not managing well anymore. I thanked her, then hung up. I didn't feel smug. I didn't smile, but I didn't cry either. I just sat by the window, watching sunlight spill through the trees out front, and realized something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being crushed by duty or guilt. I had chosen to step out of the cycle, and I wasn't going back. The first message came on Monday morning, from someone I didn't expect. Mr. Walter, the neighbor who'd lived next door to my parents for over 20 years. Hannah, are your parents okay? Denise asked what day it was. She thought she got the date wrong, but she just got a letter from the bank. It clearly says, Notice of Foreclosure. I stared at the screen. So it had happened. Faster than I expected. 4 weeks since I stopped all support. 4 weeks for the house I once kept from falling apart to finally start collapsing. An hour later, my mom called. I didn't answer. A message followed right after the ring. Hannah, please. We really need you right now. It's serious. I read it, then set the phone down like it had nothing to do with me. But in truth, my chest still felt heavy. I had once thought this moment would bring some twisted sense of satisfaction, but it didn't. Only a hollow, aching fatigue. Maybe because I was too used to cleaning up after others. I didn't reply. 2 days later, for the first time in weeks, Samantha showed up at my door. She stood there in a wrinkled hoodie, no makeup, clutching a messy stack of documents. Her eyes gave away the panic. I just need 5 minutes, she said, breathless. Just 5 minutes, Hannah. I crossed my arms, blocking the doorway, not a single ounce of sympathy in my eyes. You here to ask for money? Not money, she blurted out, her voice shaky. I need your help talking to the bank. I don't understand the terms they're using. I'm overwhelmed. What about the inheritance you got? I asked, my tone as casual as commenting on the weather. She looked down and mumbled, It's tied up in an investment portfolio. If I withdraw now, there's a penalty. I didn't think it would spiral this fast. I raised an eyebrow. Yet you signed for everything without hesitation. I thought Mom and Dad had it under control. They said it was all set. I didn't think. Exactly. You didn't think. Like, always. Samantha fell silent. I stepped out and pulled the door closed behind me. This is the lesson you need to learn. Everyone stumbles. But no one grows if someone's always there to catch them. You're really going to let them lose the house? I'm not letting anything happen. They made their choice, now they live with it. I turned away, leaving Samantha standing alone in the building's hallway. 3 days later, I ran into Ben, an old classmate turned real estate agent, at a networking event at the local arts center. I was just about to tell him about the photo project I'd been working on when he interrupted, eyes wide. Hey, is your parents' house on Vine Street? I nodded. Someone on my team mentioned them. Sounds like they're urgently looking to sell. Old house, needs work, high foreclosure risk. Are you doing okay? I gave a faint smile. I'm fine. I guess they're not. Ben looked like he wanted to say more but decided against it. That night, I opened my laptop and spotted an email from a legal aid organization I volunteered with back in college. They were recruiting mentors for a new program, helping seniors manage housing debt. I smiled softly. Life had a strange way of circling back. I sat quietly for a long moment before starting the application. Not for my parents. Not for Samantha. For me. The one who had finally learned to let go. I didn't need to save the old house anymore. But if I could use what I'd been through to keep someone else from falling into that same cycle, that would be worth it. Saturday afternoon, I had just wrapped up a photography workshop and returned to my quiet little apartment, expecting nothing more than a hot cup of tea and a peaceful evening. But as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a familiar silver minivan parked near the gate. 4 years ago, I had co-signed for that van when my dad, Richard, could no longer make the payments. I'd transferred the title to him last year as a final gesture of trust. Now it sat there like a bitter reminder. I got out of my car, walking slowly. My parents stood waiting near the building entrance. Samantha stood a bit behind, clutching her purse, eyes full of barely concealed worry. I said nothing. I stopped a few steps away, arms crossed, waiting. My mother, Denise, spoke first. Her voice was trembling. Hannah, I'm sorry we had to come here, but things have gotten out of hand. The bank's coming to reassess the property next week. My father continued, his voice lower and wearier than I'd ever heard. We made a mistake, I know that, but if the house is taken, your mother won't be able to handle it. I looked straight at him, my gaze colder than it had ever been. Then why, when writing the will, did you decide I wasn't worth including? He dropped his eyes, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his coat. Back then, we thought you'd be fine. You've always been strong. But Samantha, I interrupted, gets to fail, gets forgiven, and inherits everything. I turned to face my sister. She pressed her lips together, said nothing. No denial, no excuse. I gave away my youth, I said, my voice quiet but every word sharp, without conditions. And in return, I got disregard. And the assumption that Hannah will take care of it. I'm not in that role anymore. My mother's tears fell. We didn't know it would come to this. Can't you help? Just a little, just for a few months until things stabilize. I shook my head, a breeze in my chest sweeping away years of obligation. I'm not saying no because I can't help. I'm saying no because if I do, everyone will go right back to believing they never need to change. Samantha finally spoke, her voice small and broken. I didn't realize it would get so complicated. I thought it just needed time. I didn't think you'd walk away so fast. I looked at her, for the first time in weeks. I didn't walk away fast, I warned. I waited. I hoped. But our family chose to ignore all of it. So, this is really the end? My mom whispered, tears still fresh on her cheeks. I looked at her. The woman who once rocked me to sleep, who I'd brought medicine to, taken to the ER, cooked for after my dad retired. And I saw, clearer than ever, the line between blood and actual love. I didn't end this, I said. It ended the moment you decided who deserved to be named and who didn't. No one said a word. The late autumn wind whistled through the bare trees, carrying with it a chill that no jacket could warm. I stepped up onto the porch, pulled out my keys, and unlocked the door. Before walking inside, I turned back one last time. I hope you find a way, but I'm no longer the lifeline for this family. I looked at Samantha and spoke slowly. If you truly want to grow up, this is your chance. I've stepped off the merry-go-round. Now it's your turn. I walked in and shut the door behind me. The sound of the wind in the hallway drowned out their footsteps as they left. I stood quietly in my living room, afternoon sunlight casting a long beam across the floor through the glass. No tears. no heartbreak, just a silence, peaceful. I thought that after that final confrontation, they'd go quiet. I had hoped the truth would make them reflect and quietly step back out of pride. But I overestimated the self-awareness of people who've always lived off others. A week later, I got a message from Olivia, a close coworker at the art center. "Hannah, are you on Facebook? You should check your mom's page. She's posting some unbelievable stuff." My hand trembled slightly as I typed Denise Baker into the search bar. Her timeline was filled with emotional posts, flower photos, and inspirational quotes, but what made me freeze was one standout post, with a picture of our old house attached. It's heartbreaking when your own daughter turns her back on family, abandoning sick and aging parents, refusing to help in our time of need. After everything we sacrificed for her. Over 80 shares. The comments were full of sympathy, comfort, and judgment for the ungrateful child. I bit my lip, scrolling further, and saw another post. This one from my dad, Richard. "We thought Hannah was someone who loved her family, but when we needed her the most, she walked away without a word. The house is about to be taken, and she acts like nothing's happening." Then came a post from Samantha, with a clearly mocking tone. "Some people are only kind when they're above you, looking down. But when family asks them to step down and help, they choose silence. That's today's version of strong, I guess." I gripped my phone tighter. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even shocked. I was tired. When guilt didn't work on me anymore, they turned to public shaming. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't silent anymore. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into my Facebook, which I rarely used. I made a single post. No background color, no fancy design. But every word was clear as daylight. My family is sharing a one-sided story, so, to be fair, here's the truth from my side. I attached a photo of the will, with Samantha's name as the sole beneficiary. I posted snapshots of the mortgage payments, utility bills, insurance, all under my name. Then I included the last text I got from my mom, asking for $2,900.00 to save the house. I ended with one line. My silence wasn't consent. I was just waiting for the right moment to tell the truth. That moment is now. Within 10 minutes, the first comment appeared. "Hannah, you seriously did all of this? I can't believe it." An old friend commented. "You're one of the kindest people I know. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." Then, one by one, people started sharing the post. Some who had known my parents chimed in, many expressing surprise. I always thought Samantha lived pretty recklessly. Now it makes sense. No one should be taken advantage of like that, especially not by their own family. My post spread quickly, not because it was sensational, but because it was real. It was honest, and it didn't shy away. 2 days later, my mom took down all her posts. My dad deactivated his account. Samantha changed her profile picture to a black and white flower. The vague, dramatic move she always made when things slipped out of her control. I didn't respond. I didn't post anything else. I just sat in my apartment, listening to the rain tap softly on the window, and for the first time, felt justice on my side. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need them to bow their heads. I just needed them to stop. And it seemed, finally, they understood that I wasn't someone they could manipulate anymore. One post, enough to end the years I'd been forced into silence. And now, I was writing the next chapter not on social media but in real life. Since that day I posted, I haven't heard a word from Mom, Dad, or Samantha. Everything has been as still as a forgotten lake after a storm. But not the silence of waiting. This was the silence of acceptance. They had lost the only person who always came back after they broke everything. I was the opposite. I began to live. Every Monday morning, I headed to the art center to teach my first photography class for high school students. The way their eyes lit up holding a camera for the first time, the way they viewed the world through a lens. It reminded me that not everyone sees the same thing, and sometimes You have to choose your own angle. In the evenings, I took a part-time video editing course, a skill I'd always dreamed of learning but put off because my family needed me. Now no one needs me. And for the first time in my life, that felt freeing. I started going on evening walks, unhurried and carefree. I baked on weekends, posted pictures on Instagram without worrying about being called fake. I made new friends in class, people who didn't know me as the one who held the family together. And because of that, I finally got to just be me. While I was learning how to breathe, across town, the house at 218 Elm Street began popping up on real estate listings. A friend of mine, Marcus, now a realtor, texted me, "Hannah, your parents' house is up for sale. Asking $390,000, 0 cents, but no offers. Looks like they couldn't fix the roof or the faulty wiring." I wasn't surprised. No one to fix the fuse box at midnight, no one to replace the water heater or call the repair guy in time. No more me. That house had survived because of me. And now it reflected the truth. Neglected, run down, and with no one left who could keep it standing. I heard one more update from Lorraine, the elderly neighbor. She called just to check in, but before hanging up, she mentioned casually, "Oh, and it seems like Samantha's moved back in with your parents. I see her doing the grocery runs often. She doesn't look too happy." I looked up from my laptop and took a sip of my still warm coffee. In the past, hearing something like that would have made my chest tighten with worry. But now, I simply shrugged. Maybe what Samantha needed most was to experience the instability she used to so easily ignore. I wasn't glad they were struggling. I just no longer wanted to carry the weight of choices that weren't mine. For the first time in 10 years, my savings account was steadily growing. I booked a fall trip to Seattle to photograph the changing leaves. I put a deposit down on a new semi-pro camera, something I used to consider an unnecessary luxury. I was learning to take care of myself the way I once cared for an entire family. I also started writing again. Not defensive posts, but a blog about breaking away from toxic family dynamics. Some entries were widely shared. Many people messaged me, thanking me for saying what they never had the words to express. And on a rainy afternoon, while I was editing photos in my favorite cafe, my phone buzzed with a notification from a real estate site. Price dropped by $30,000, 0 cents on property at 218 Elm. Owner seeking urgent sale. I looked at the photo of the house. Dark roof tiles, rotting fence, peeling window frames. It used to symbolize duty, pressure, and expectation. Now it was just a house, waiting to be rescued. And I wasn't the rescuer anymore. I tapped hide notification, closed my phone, and smiled. A soft smile, lighter than air, but deeper than any sigh I'd swallowed over the years. I didn't belong there anymore. One early winter afternoon, I was walking around Liberty Lake with my new camera. The golden light of dusk cut through bare branches, casting soft beams across the water. I stopped, raised my camera, and captured the perfect frame. A little boy running in the distance, his mother behind him, laughing and calling out. In that moment, I realized some things aren't meant to be held onto because they were never truly yours to begin with. I used to believe family was something you could never lose, that blood was an unbreakable bond. But now I know the thing that makes a family real isn't DNA, it's respect and gratitude. I had given everything in hopes of being seen, and in return I became the name left off a will, the one called dramatic for refusing to carry others' burdens any longer. I wasn't angry anymore, not really. I had just let go. They still lived there, in that old house, now listed for the 3rd time. Word was, whenever someone came to view it, Samantha tried to act like a responsible homeowner. But when asked about maintenance records or repair bills, she'd just smile awkwardly. Because all those years, no one ever taught her what to do. I never went back, not once. My mother once sent me a handwritten letter, sealed in a familiar blue envelope with handwriting I knew by heart. She wrote about her sleepless nights, not knowing where to begin again. That your father isn't as strong as he used to be. At the end, she wrote, I don't know how much time we have left to fix things, but if you're willing, I'm still here. I folded the letter. I didn't tear it. I didn't reply. I placed it in the drawer beneath my desk, next to undeveloped photos and half-finished drafts. Things that needed time to be understood and accepted. I didn't hate them. I just no longer had the strength to keep sacrificing without being heard. I kept working, kept teaching, kept creating and capturing. I even held a small photo exhibit at a friend's cafe, showcasing images that traced my journey to healing. Early mornings in the park, golden light on quiet streets, an elderly woman's thin hands holding a warm mug, a single flower fallen on cracked pavement. A middle-aged woman came up to me afterward, shook my hand, and said, I don't know why, but every photo of yours feels like it's speaking for someone who's been silent for a long time. I smiled, saying nothing, because she was right. I had spent my life staying quiet, for peace, for the role of the good daughter, for the hope that enough giving would earn me the love I longed for. But now, I've chosen a different kind of peace. Not one that comes from others' approval, but from finally choosing myself. I've learned how to love myself, unconditionally. I've learned to say no, without guilt. I've learned to let others face the consequences of their own choices. And most importantly, I've learned not to look back. They're still my family, on paper, in memory, but they're no longer at the center of my every decision. I don't know what the future holds, whether there'll be a reunion or if things will remain as they are, but that doesn't matter anymore. Because in the end, I finally understand. Family isn't just the people who share your last name. Family is the people who value your presence. The ones who don't treat your kindness like a duty. The ones who make you feel seen and chosen. And if none of them can do that, that's okay, because I have a family me, and I don't need to look anywhere else. My story isn't a tragedy. It's an awakening. I once believed that love and sacrifice would always be rewarded, that family was unshakable. But the truth is, no one deserves to be taken for granted, not even by their own blood. I've learned to set boundaries, to walk away when necessary, and to choose myself without regret. Now I live with lightness, freedom, and peace, not because they changed, but because I changed myself. What do you think about Hannah's decision? Was she too harsh, or was this the only way to truly protect herself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about real family life. I sat in my usual corner at the brunch spot my family frequented every weekend. The coffee in front of me had gone cold, but I kept stirring it slowly, an old habit that helped me stay calm. No one paid attention to me because, as always, the spotlight belonged to my sister, Vivian. She sat with her legs crossed, morning sunlight catching the sparkle of the diamond ring on her hand. Your old job really was a snooze fest, she laughed, her voice loud enough to echo through the cafe. It's kind of hilarious that someone in their 30s still doesn't have a real job. I heard every word, every pause in her sentence. No one else laughed, just Vivian, the only one amused by her own joke. I didn't look at her. I just pressed my lips together and kept stirring my cold coffee. My mother awkwardly murmured, "Vivian, don't be like that." But my sister only shrugged. To her, silence was proof of failure. My father tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, something about the Eggs Benedict being a little too salty, but Vivian's smirk lingered, like a hook waiting for a reaction. I said nothing. I was never the talkative one at family gatherings, and somehow, that made them assume I had nothing worth saying. But the truth was, ever since I chose to live behind the scenes, silence had become the space where I built an entire world, one none of them could imagine. I remember exactly when I first realized that some of the greatest things didn't need to be shown off. I was 27, sitting beside Sam, my best friend from college, as we typed the first lines of code for what would later become the core of an intelligent data analytics system used by banks, hospitals, and even government agencies. Now, at 33, I'm the co-founder of DataLoom, a tech company valued at over $80 million. 0 cents. But no one in my family knows. I never appeared on the official website. In interviews, Sam was the face of the company, and me? I chose to stay behind the spotlight. My name only appeared on internal documents, investor agreements, and Vivian's pay stub. Funny, isn't it? The sister who never hesitated to mock my quietness is now applying to the company I helped build, completely unaware that the person reviewing her application is the fulfiller she's mocked for years. I watched her chatter on, bragging about the now-defunct accounting firm she worked for. But it's all good. She waved it off. I'm a problem solver. I'm targeting a new company. Something called DataLoom? Heard they're hiring. My heart skipped a beat. For the first time during the meal, I looked up. Then quickly looked back down, careful to keep the flicker in my eyes unnoticed. She kept going. I already applied. If they bring me in, I'll handle their budget better than anyone there. If they pass me up, it's their loss. I bit my tongue to keep from laughing. That sentence, bold and smug, was a carbon copy of the lines she used to throw at me, claiming I'd never get anywhere hiding in the shadows. And maybe she'll never realize it. But in that very shadow, I built an empire, one she's now about to walk into, under my leadership. Still, I chose to remain silent, not out of fear, but because I knew the truth would speak for itself. I remember my 12th birthday vividly. While everyone sang happy birthday, Vivian burst out of the living room holding a giant gold trophy. Our baby just won the state dance competition, my mom beamed, wrapping her arms around Vivian. I stood by my cake, candles flickering in front of me, but no one asked what I wished for. And I didn't even bother blowing them out. Vivian was always like that, bright, loud, always giving people something to clap for. Me? I quietly gathered my gifts, went to my room, opened the old laptop Dad gave me the year before, and kept building my first data model. Even as a child, I loved what others found boring. I liked taking toys apart to see how they worked. I loved figuring out why a video game ran so smoothly. I loved the feeling of writing a block of code and watching it work flawlessly. My mom used to say, "Eleanor can sit for hours and you won't hear a sound." Dad used to joke, "We've got a firework and a flashlight in this house, guess which is which?" No guessing needed. Vivian was the firework, I was the flashlight. Steady, but overlooked. As we grew older, the gap between us widened. Vivian studied art, made a few appearances on local TV thanks to her dramatic performances. I studied computer science at a tech institute. No one in the family remembers the school's name. When I graduated, they forgot the date entirely. They were too busy planning Vivian's fashion line launch. I don't blame them. Sometimes I thought maybe I just wasn't interesting enough, but silence slowly became the space where I found my value. When Sam and I started DataLoom, all we had were 2 beat-up laptops and a dream, to build a flexible analytics system that could predict user behavior in real time. Sam was the talker. He pitched to investors, did press interviews, ran meetings. I was the one backstage, writing every line of code, fixing every bug. A year later, a major bank signed a trial contract. 2 years in, our system was integrated into finance, healthcare, and risk analysis platforms. By year 3, DataLoom was valued at $83 million, 0 cents. I held 49% of the shares. But ask anyone? They'd only know Sam Fletcher. As for Eleanor Green, never featured in a headline. And that was how I wanted it. I didn't care for hollow handshakes, flashing cameras, or whispers behind my back. I wanted to work, to build, to help people make better decisions with what I created. As for Vivian, after her own fashion startup failed due to financial mismanagement, she went back to accounting at a small firm. Then came layoffs. Now, she's pinning her hopes on a new opportunity she has no idea I created. Um, I don't know if she'll ever see me as an equal. To Vivian, I'll always be the little sister with her head in the clouds and a bunch of old laptops. But she's about to walk into a space where every wall, every budget model, every analytics tool was designed by me. And what I wonder most is this. When she sees my name, Eleanor Green, at the bottom corner of her paycheck or the next budget draft, will she recognize it? Or will she still believe I'm just a faded extra in the dazzling world she chases? A part of me hopes she never finds out. Another part wants to see her face when the truth finally hits. I don't need her admiration. I just want her to stop looking down on me. That night, back in my quiet apartment on the 18th floor, Seattle's sky was wrapped in a soft mist like a velvet curtain after a show. I pulled out my laptop, logged into Datalume's internal system, thousands of lines of code and reports I knew by heart. The first notification popped up from HR. Recommended candidate, Vivian Green. I leaned back in my chair, eyes settling on the file on screen. I had expected this moment, but still, my heart paused for a beat. Her smiling photo, dressed in a beige blazer, stood out on the application form. I skimmed through her experience, skills, and the internal reviewer's note. Confident demeanor, strong communicator, well-suited for the budget analyst role. Recommend for next round interview. I didn't type a word, just click the 3 dots in the corner. A window appeared. Forward, code, cop, pro. I clicked approve. She got the job. No one at the company, except Sam, knew I was a co-founder. From day one, we agreed to use only Sam's name on all media and public documents. I didn't want my image floating around the internet. I'd seen too many people lose their personal lives chasing fame. I didn't need praise. I needed freedom. So within Datalume, I was simply Eleanor, the senior technical advisor who usually worked remotely. I only came into the office once a week, after 6 p.m. The rest of the time, I led projects, approved spending, and mapped out strategies, all from behind the scenes. Sam was the one in front of cameras, shaking hands with investors and speaking at tech conferences. He always respected my choice, never once revealing my identity to employees or the press. I used to wonder if that decision was the right one, but now, watching Vivian step into the world I built with my own hands, I was certain staying silent was the only way to make this moment interesting. On her first day at work, I stayed home, just as scheduled, but I turned on the internal camera system, something very few people knew I designed. From a low-angle view in the shared kitchen on the 9th floor, I saw her standing near the espresso machine, eyes wide with surprise as she looked at the digital bulletin board displaying the company's ongoing projects. "This is the new company that hired me," she told a colleague proudly. "Word is, the 2 founders are super private. No one's ever seen the other one. Might just be a legal placeholder." I chuckled softly. It wasn't the first time I'd heard someone question the existence of the second co-founder. That afternoon, Sam video called me. "She's off to a decent start," he said, sipping coffee. "Confident, maybe a bit showy, but competent. Are you sure about this? She still has no idea who you are, Eleanor." "For now, let's keep it that way," I replied. "Just don't slip. If she's good, this is a great opportunity. If she's not, the truth will come out faster." This wasn't about revenge. I didn't want her to fail, nor did I seek payback. I just wanted to know, how would Vivian behave when no one recognized her? When there was no spotlight, no audience clapping? A week passed, then 2. Each time I came into the office after hours, she had already left. I kept my routine, approving budgets at night, reviewing HR files in the silence of empty halls and idle elevators. Until one day, I was in the basement server room checking the security system when I heard high heels echoing in the hallway. I stepped out and there she was, frozen in the doorway. "Eleanor?" she asked, startled and suspicious. I nodded calmly. "Hi." She squinted. "What are you doing down here? Only senior management has access to this area." I smiled. "Well, I guess I have special access. She tilted her head, about to say something, when Sam stepped out from the adjacent room holding a folder. Hey, Eleanor, could you take a look at the new AI deployment plan? Needs your sign-off by Friday. I took the file and looked back at Vivian. Her eyes froze. There was no need for words. I knew in that moment the seed of doubt had been planted. And now I'd see... Would she finally see me? Or still view me as the harmless shadow she always believed I was? That morning, Seattle had a light drizzle. I had just signed off on the latest quarterly report when my phone rang. It was Sam. Eleanor, something funny just happened. I think Vivian's starting to get curious, he said with a hint of amusement. I looked up at my screen. A new email from accounting popped up. NS signature found in internal budget file. Please confirm approving authority. My heart slowed. It was time. Nearly 2 months had passed since Vivian officially joined Dataloom as a budget analyst. In that time, she had begun earning favor in a few departments, thanks to her confidence and persuasive skills. I had watched from afar, quietly approving her proposals and saying nothing. But she had started noticing details. During one budget approval for marketing, Vivian stumbled upon a file signed with an e-signature, clearly labeled Eleanor Green, NS. Alongside it was the co-founder's ID code. I knew she wouldn't let that go. The next morning, I overheard a snippet of conversation in the cafe downstairs. A young colleague whispered to Vivian, "Who's this NS person anyway? Like a ghost in the system. Never seen them, but they sign off on everything big." Vivian smirked. "Probably just a legal figurehead. I don't trust names without faces." Behind a wooden partition, I tightened my grip on my coffee cup. Don't trust. She'd learn soon enough. 3 days later, she walked straight into accounting and requested access to the full budget record for the most recent quarter. With her clearance, she opened file after file, until she reached the one where my name appeared again and again, beside documents outlining Dataloom's financial core. Not just signatures, but dates, file IDs, legal assessments. Every key piece carried my name. The same sister who believed I lived off the family's kindness was now staring at proof that I wasn't just any employee. I was the one who had approved her paycheck, the one behind the very reports she worked with every day. That afternoon, I got a system alert. Internal access request from account Vivian Green, Dartag Dataloom, founding records. She had reached the master file. I pictured her sitting there, soft blue light illuminating her face as she saw the founding documents for the first time. Eleanor Green and Samuel Fletcher. 50/50 ownership. Role description, Chief Technical Architect. Ms. Green. Her heart must have clenched. I knew her. When she's shocked, she doesn't scream or cause a scene. She goes silent. But her eyes blaze. Then she starts trying to prove. This can't be real. That same afternoon, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. I wanted to see her reaction with my own eyes. Sure enough, when I entered the pantry, I saw Vivian standing alone, gripping the edge of the counter, staring at a printed page. I approached gently. "You okay?" She turned, eyes locked on mine, furious and confused. "Eleanor," she said, voice tight. "You're the co-founder?" I didn't answer immediately. I just nodded. "How long?" she asked. "Since the beginning," I replied calmly. "Sam and I started this company in a tiny room near Capitol Hill, back when you thought I was unemployed." Vivian laughed, not mockingly, but bitterly. Half disbelief, half self-directed irony. "So all this time, you were signing my paycheck. I worked under you?" I nodded again. "Not out of pride, Vivian, just doing my job." "You're capable, so I approved your promotion. If you weren't, I'd have done the opposite." She fell silent, eyes dropping to the floor. I pulled a sheet from my pocket. a budget plan for an upcoming initiative on tech education for underprivileged kids. We're launching this soon. If you're interested, I think you'd be a great fit. She didn't take the paper. But her eyes changed. Something had shifted. I turned to leave, not pushing her. She'd need time. But for the first time in years, I saw in her eyes not scorn, but a silent question. How many times have I misjudged my little sister? The 5-year Dataloom anniversary gala was held in a glass building by Lake Union, where chandelier light danced like ripples across the floor. I stood in the guest dressing room, staring into the mirror. A long black dress, minimalist but elegant, fit snugly against a frame worn from years of all-nighters. My hair was pinned neatly, lips brushed with soft pink. I didn't want to stand out, but it wasn't about what I wanted anymore. Sam knocked, peeking in. "Ready, Eleanor?" I swallowed hard. Not really, but I guess no one's ever truly ready to step out of the dark. He laughed. "You're not stepping out. You're stepping up." We walked onto the stage from the wings as the lights dimmed. The MC had just finished. "And now, please welcome the 2 co-founders of Dataloom, Samuel Fletcher and Eleanor Green." Applause erupted, loud, clear, electric. Every eye turned toward me as I stepped into the light for the first time, officially and without a mask. I smiled, quietly but with purpose. And then I saw Vivian. She stood at the back of the room, one hand clutching a champagne glass she hadn't touched, her face stunned, her world flipped upside down. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it. On the day we landed our first $1 million investment, that moment when something no one thought was real becomes undeniable. Sam spoke first. He shared our journey from his mom's garage to Dataloom's current HQ, about server crashes at 2 a.m., deadlines that left us passed out on keyboards. When he passed the mic to me, the room fell silent. I took a deep breath. "Hi, everyone. I'm Eleanor Green, and I guess, for many of you, this is the first time you've actually seen me." A gentle wave of laughter rolled through the crowd. It wasn't mocking, it was warm surprise. I continued, "I'm not great at public speaking, and I never imagined I'd be up here. But 5 years ago, Sam and I had 2 things: an idea and a belief that technology could be built on trust." I glanced down at the audience. Vivian was still standing there, no longer holding her drink. Her eyes were fixed on me, as if trying to make sense of a stranger wearing the face of someone she once knew. "I know I'm not the public face of this company," I went on, "and that was entirely my choice. But today, I felt I owed you my presence, not for fame, but out of gratitude." Applause rose again. I nodded in thanks, then stepped back to let the MC close the ceremony. As the lights shifted to dinner, I made my way toward the buffet, looking for a quiet corner. But with every step, someone stopped me to chat. "We thought you were a legend," one software engineer laughed. "Didn't think you actually existed." I smiled, made a few polite replies, but my mind kept drifting back to Vivian. I glanced toward the pillar where she'd stood. Empty. She had left. And I didn't know when she'd gone or how much of my speech she'd heard. But I felt something, an empty space quietly opening inside me, where there should have been a warm look from someone close. That night, back in my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and sank into the sofa. My phone lit up with dozens of congratulatory messages from colleagues, partners, even my parents. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Words can't describe it." But nothing from Vivian. I replayed the live stream of the event on the company website, skipped ahead to my speech, then hit pause. I didn't need to watch it again. I just wanted to know one thing. In that moment, under the spotlight, what did Vivian see? A stranger? Or the little sister she once believed would never amount to anything? 2 days after the gala, I arrived at the office earlier than usual. Not for a meeting or to sign off on documents, just to finish something personal. I opened the drawer in the 10th floor conference room and pulled out a small walnut box I'd kept since college. Inside, I placed a navy linen-covered notebook, a black ink pen, and a handwritten card. It took me over an hour to write just a few lines. Not fancy, not poetic, just honest. Vivian, thank you for your efforts at Datalum. You're truly capable, and I believe you'll go far. I'm proud to work with you, even if we began in silence. Eleanor. I folded the card, tucked it inside the notebook, and handed it to the internal delivery assistant with a quiet instruction. Please give this to Vivian Green, no sender name. I wasn't expecting a reply. The gift wasn't an olive branch, it was just an open door, quiet and without pressure. So she could walk through if she chose to. The rest of the week passed with no message. No email, no thank you. But I noticed a few things. Vivian no longer sat back with crossed arms during meetings. She started taking detailed notes, asked sharp questions, and gave focused input. One afternoon, I stood outside the hallway, listening as she presented a revised budget strategy for an AI project that had gone over cost. Her voice was calm, clear. Her eyes no longer carried competitiveness, but something rarer: focus. I didn't walk in. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, and nodded silently. The following week, HR announced that Vivian had proposed a new internal sponsorship initiative for junior employees, especially female interns in tech roles. She recommended allocating a portion of the CSR budget to host a series of free career workshops led by department heads. I read the proposal 3 times, slowly. Initiative name: Touch the Screen, Touch the Future. And right below it, in italics, inspired by the quiet mission of Eleanor Green. I set the file down on the table, pressing my lips together gently. That afternoon, I stopped by the pantry as usual. Vivian was there, pouring hot water into a tea carafe. When she turned and saw me, we both froze for a second. But this time, her gaze was softer. No tension. No defensiveness. I was about to pass when she suddenly spoke. The pen is beautiful, and the notebook. I've written a few pages. I turned to her. I'm glad you liked it. She gave a small nod. I don't think I ever really understood you. Or maybe I just never tried. I smiled without answering. There is something I want to say, she continued, voice lower. You didn't have to give me a chance, but you did. And you never brought any of it up. You didn't diminish me to prove a point. That says more about you than anything else ever could. For the first time, I no longer saw Vivian as the teenager basking in the spotlight with a trophy in hand. I saw a woman learning to let go of pride and truly see others. I don't know if I can make it right, she said slowly. But I'll try. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my chest. We don't need to tally up the past. We just start from today. We stood side by side for a moment longer. No explanation needed, no apology required, just a quiet understanding. This time, things would be different. And somehow, they were. Vivian stopped being the loudest person in the room. She learned to listen, gave space to younger voices, and didn't shy away from tasks she once thought beneath her. And I stopped hiding behind my screen. I began speaking at technical briefings, no longer dodging the camera. I stood before visiting students and shared my journey, not to boast, but to show them, you don't have to be the loudest to make something big. One weekend afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I saw Vivian standing before the recognition wall. The list of top contributors for the quarter. Her name was at the top. She looked at me and gave a small nod. Thank you for not giving up on me. I smiled. We're just getting started, Vivian. On Sunday, the whole family gathered at our usual brunch spot on the corner of Green Lake. Everything was just as it had always been. Dark wood chairs, sunlight filtering through striped curtains, and the smell of warm waffles filling the room. But something in the air felt different. I sat at the long table on the balcony, joined by my parents, Uncle Henry, Aunt Laura, and Vivian. She arrived 5 minutes late, but instead of wearing her usual flashy outfit or sparkling heels, she had on a simple white blouse, dark jeans, her hair neatly tied back, no makeup. As she approached me, her eyes hesitated, but then she gave a small nod. I nodded back. No words needed, just a look. That was enough. My mom was telling a story about her new flower bed when Uncle Henry suddenly chuckled and turned to me. So, Eleanor, are you still doing that little freelance thing from home? Or just typing up random computer codes all day? I smiled. Not surprised. He still thought programming was just a souped-up video game. I didn't even have time to answer before a voice rang out clearly. Uncle, Vivian said, setting down her coffee and looking straight ahead. Eleanor is the smartest person I've ever known, and without her, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. All eyes turned to her. I tilted my head slightly. But Vivian didn't shrink back like she usually did when put in the spotlight. She stood firm, gaze steady, voice unwavering. I used to think I knew everything, she continued. But Eleanor taught me something more important than knowledge: humility. Her quietness doesn't mean she has nothing to say. It means she chooses to act instead of show off. Uncle Henry looked stunned. Aunt Laura gave a subtle nod. My mother reached over and gently squeezed my hand. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. And in that look, I saw everything words couldn't express: an unspoken apology, unvoiced gratitude, and respect, earned not by blood, but by truth. A moment later, the conversation shifted back to the weather and the upcoming holidays, but I knew something important had just happened. After the meal, as people began to leave the table, I stood up to grab my bag. Vivian stepped over, jacket in hand. She didn't say a word, but as she passed by, she whispered softly, "You don't have to forgive me, but I'll never be the same person again." I turned to her, and for the first time in a very long while, I gave her a genuine smile. "I know," I said, "and I never needed you to apologize." We walked out of the brunch spot in silence, but there was no longer any tension between us. What had happened wasn't forgotten, but it no longer lived in me like a wound. That afternoon, I went home, made myself a cup of tea, opened my laptop, and stared out the window toward Lake Union. Just as I took a sip of the warm tea, a message from Sam popped up. "Heard brunch wasn't half bad today?" I replied. "Not bad, let's call it a new beginning." And maybe, sometimes, forgiveness doesn't come through words. It comes when people finally see each other, not through judgment, but through late, honest understanding. Vivian and I will never be picture-perfect sisters. But now, we're no longer standing on opposite sides. We're two grown women who've learned from their own mistakes. And to me, that's a beautiful enough ending to one chapter, and a gentle start to the next. The story between Vivian and me taught me that sometimes understanding doesn't come from grand apologies, but from quiet, genuine change. It took me years to accept that being seen isn't the only measure of worth. But when truth is finally acknowledged, no rebuttal is needed. Silence is enough to make people reflect. Real life doesn't ask for perfection, only the courage to grow, and the grace to begin again. What do you think about Eleanor and Vivian's journey? Can a late understanding be enough to mend a relationship that once seemed broken? Share your thoughts. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.